Hi everybody, my name's Sam.
And my name's Ben.
And we're
the
Bookfairboyz. Great. Do you think we got it?
It's wonderful, I'm sure.
Probably not.
My humble brag is I had the patter song when I was in my last musical of high school. I did the patter song in Thoroughly Modern Millie, where it's something like, see, this is dumb because I don't remember all of the words, and as a theater person, you never forget the words, right? So every time I say, like, I can't remember the words, everyone's like, what? You
didn't do it.
Yeah. Yes, you can. Stop being so, like, bleh. And I'm like, I legitimately, so whatever. It doesn't matter.
Oh, no. The humble brags fizzled out.
Oh, jeez. Okay, well, it's something like, Dear Mr. Hudson, : my eyes are fully open to this awful situation, so I'm writing you a letter to demand an explanation for the floor exam we got from you arrived here Monday morning. And we discovered upon users that the fume should have a warning.
Doesn't really matter. This is a Pirates of Penzance song.
Yeah, so it's like a satire of that, yeah.
It's a satire of the British aristocracy.
Yeah, isn't that fun?
That is fun.
So I remember the first part, but not the rest of it, and I could do it really fast, and it was really fun. Which was also fun because then I didn't really have to sing, because I can't really sing, and I can't really dance either. So then I would be like, okay, you have 5 minutes to type, because it was stenographers. So it was like, I dictate this to you, and then I would leave, and they would all tap it out, and it was a huge tap number. So it was like my number, but I wasn't on stage for it. And then at the end, they all pose, and I have the letter that I've dictated, and I stand on the desk and I throw it up, so it's still my number. And I didn't have to dance.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Did they do that for you specifically? They're like, this kid can't dance. Let's get him off stage.
Well, no, it's just the way that it's written, but I did get that part a lot. Like, I played Jacob in Joseph, and so he's like the dad, and they're like, you can be the dad. He is a great part. No dancing. They had to dumb a lot of stuff down for me.
I mean, dancing's hard, man. You got to move your body parts in different directions, and they all have to feel like they're in control, but be together at the same time. It's very hard.
Terrible. Did you do musicals, or were you just straight plays? Like, no.
I tried to be a theater person my junior year of high school because my girlfriend at the time was a theater person, or it was either junior or senior. And it was just way too late. It was too late in the game, man. These kids were like outstripping me by miles when it came. I did my audition and I was like, oh, so this is what it feels like to audition for something. And then I was like, I'm sorry, everybody. I'll see you later. Thank you. And then I went to my writer's room and just wrote from then on.
Oh, no. So
I found my artistic expression.
You weren't even in the chorus? Like, you didn't even do the audition?
I did 2 auditions, but they were for proper plays. Our theater department at Columbus High School was actually pretty good. And so they did, it was like some sort of murder mystery thing, but it was like a 6-character play. And then they did a couple ensemble plays, but I don't know, I wasn't into musicals. I'm like, I go and sing in church every Sunday. I don't want to do this nonsense. I don't want to sing somewhere else.
Yeah, that's fair. There's theater people and then there's musical theater people, right?
Yes, it's true. Although I feel like in high school, you kind of have to be both. Yeah. Because the theater crowd, at least in a high school that's like moderately sized, because the theater crowd kind of has to do everything. And you'll have some that just come in for the musicals, but like the ones who are like the main stage people, at least at Columbus, were still in the musicals.
Well, we only had musicals at my high school. So then when I got a friend of mine and we started our own drama club where it was like student run, like straight plays. We wrote and directed our own thing.
Oh my god, how fancy of you.
Yeah, it was fun. And it's still around, and they
What? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so when I was student teaching, I visited one of their rehearsals, and they were like, it's so nice to meet you, Mr. Rebline. And I was like, weird.
It's like Dumbledore walking in on Dumbledore's army practicing.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm just kind of like the headmaster here, guys. It's fine. Yeah. Except you're not even a headmaster, you're just a sub.
Yeah, it was just some dude. And they had this, right. So I graduated high school in 2012.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm processing that still. I can't remember when we started Chalkboard Theater Project ever. I can't. It was 2009 was the first show, but it was not us. You know, it was like the 24-hour thing. So it's the first show we all did. And then our next proper show was 2011, 2012. We did it every year, but like there was like 2011 and 2012 was the one that was before we started. So I think we started 2013, but I can't ever remember. It's funny, like, because we always tell our story and I just always make up a date every time. I'm like back in 2008, and I can see like Kendra and Eva like making eyes. I just keep rolling with it. If there was like a gospel written about Chalkboard Theater Project in the future, I'm trying to seed various like internal disagreements where it's going to like at some point in the future they're going to have to like rectify dates, and it, you know, it'll all be oral history.
Scholarly disputes.
Yeah, of course.
That's funny, because I do remember looking at different things and being like, well, this one says CTP's been around for 8 years. But maybe I'm misremembering that.
Who knows? Who knows, man?
So you started it, and then it became CTP later? Like, you did a project, and then...
Yeah, so we had one of our theater directors who I worked with pretty closely went off to a 24-hour play thing at Princeton just because she knew some theater people there up in New Jersey. Then she came back, and she was like, I want to do this here. So she did it there, and that was the first time it happened, was this 24-hour process. And then she ran it again another year, and then Mark Hallen, the theater director, took it over for the last 2. And then he came to Kendra and Eva and was like, I'm not going to do this anymore, but I want it to be around, so do you guys want to do it? And then they came to me he came to me and he was like, oh, we also need writing stuff. And so like we all 3 got introduced that way, even though we worked together previously. Then we were like, okay, well, we'll do it again next year. And so we did it at Eastern, we did it at Eastern again. And then we were like, let's just make a company and like come up with a curriculum and do our own stuff other places. We don't just have to do this at Eastern. So I don't think it was actually until 2015 that we actually established the company, but we had been doing it for a couple years at that point. So it's like, you know, this is not the definitive history. It was actually 2016 or 2017. I don't know when.
Scholars have
or it might have been 2013.
Yeah. That's funny. It's such a cool story. I mean, the whole community just has such a like clear love for each other and support. It's so cool. You know, with the first draft of something, I think you tend to do that thing of explaining. I mean, with the first draft of writing anything, you're explaining it to yourself for the first time, right? So if all of a sudden a new character enters, the next paragraph, I don't know if you do this, but I definitely do, where I like explain who that character is in the next paragraph.
Yeah.
And then with the second draft, I'm like, okay, well, I can say this earlier and sort of do it. There's a way in which R.L. Stine doesn't quite edit that out in previous books. And so I'm reading Thinner by Stephen King now, and I can see that he definitely doesn't edit out those moments because like, and he says that he doesn't, right? I mean, he doesn't plot out his novels really beforehand. He'll like just pound through an entire first draft and then look back and he'd be like, change a couple things. But so he'll like mention a character and then he'll go on to explain for a page the relationship that the protagonist has to that character. And there's something that feels very inefficient about that. But here, you're right, that it's just like beat for beat. I already know who these people are. I've done some editing this time around. And it's all come together. Not, I mean, you know, he probably edited the other novels as well. And Stephen King, of course, edits everything. But he also doesn't, because if he did, his books would be much shorter.
Yeah, and in the case of R.L. Stine, he wouldn't have 12 books that he releases in a year. I think in 1993, when this one came out, he ended up doing 7 books or some nonsense. Like, he had a little gap, but, you know, even at this thin length, you know that that's just pounding away at the keyboard.
Yeah, and there's a lot of small moments that I know I would keep tinkering with, which is almost probably, like, why I'm not writing 12 books a year, because like I remember in Say Cheese or Die, you could say cheese or you could die. Say Cheese or Die, when he discovers the camera, it's sitting on a shelf and he says there's a camera on the shelf. In my own writing, I would say on the shelf sat the camera. The difference between saying there's a camera there versus there is the camera sets up the expectation that this camera is important or an item of sacredness or something, you know, significant. There's only one versus like there is just an item.
Yeah.
So
totally.
Maybe I shouldn't tinker with those moments so much. Maybe I would actually write more Maybe there's a lesson here.
Well, there's the write more and then there's the write better theory. And I mean, these guys, I don't know. There is something to be said about, you do end up with a couple monster bloods. And if you don't have a 12-book deal like R.L. Stine, one monster blood might just sink your whole writing career. So, you know what I mean? So if you're doing the write more approach, there are disadvantages to it in that, like, sometimes you end up with just some stinkers, whether it's trunk novels, whether it's whatever, and you're just able to throw it out there because you need, like, volume. I think this feels like it was probably the most refined.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I could be completely wrong. Maybe he just had I want to do a spooky doll story and he cranked it out, but, like, it feels very motivated. And it was the first time where I think when you write kids, right, in horror movies and whatever, like, writing kids has a unique advantage in that you can just cut right to the meat. Like, kids are not subtextual. They don't sit there and they don't talk about whatever. You can just have them, like, be mean or be sad or be angry at each other, and it's totally believable. And this is the first time where I felt like he really used that well. Like, there's a scene early on where Lindy and Chris are in the backyard. Lindy's putting on a show with Slappy, and, she turns to Chris and she says something like, "I'm pretty, you're stupid and ugly," or something like that. And, like, you have the, like, means of Slappy doing that as, like, a way to, like, sort of explain and diffuse fault, but you also just have the fact that they're kids and they can just be mean like that to each other. That really escalates conflict in unique ways. And you don't really get that in a lot of his other books, so it seems like he's kind of thought through the characters and thought about how we can use them to, like, truly push and escalate, not just by, like, being annoying or falling into character traits, but, like, actually, like, escalating conflict and picking at each other the way kids do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Without subtext and without subtlety.
Yeah, and there's a lot of just, like, you're right that, like, who knows? He could have tinkered with this and fussed with it a bunch, or it could have just, like, come out clean. I mean,
yeah.
With things that I've written, it's gone either way, where you're like, you write a first draft and you're like, this is good. This is only going to need, like, 2 more drafts before it's solid. Or you write a first draft and you're like, I'm going to not look at this for a year. And then when I do look at it, I'm going to tell myself what an asshole I am, then I have no talent, and then I'm going to futz with it for another year, and then it's going to be kind of okay. And there's no way really to, I guess, know unless we ask him like which one it was for Night of the Living Dummy. But there is just something magic about that like, and I think that's the thing too. Like, you get people who are not creative minds who ask creative minds, like, well, how do you do it? And you have no answer because they think that they're talking to a magician who's going to be like, well, I keep the bird in my sleeve, but there is no bird. It's just, you have no idea.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you can discover tricks, right? Like, we can look at this and we can say, I mean, this was a moment of revelation for me, was reading this and being like, oh yeah, you can use kids to just, to just get straight to the meat, because this happens so much in this where the kids are just, like, cruel to each other or just say dumb things or mean things to each other. But, again, I'm seeing that as an outsider, right? And I can try to apply that lesson to writing, but whether it comes through or not is not necessarily something that we're going to see on the back end. And I'm certainly not going to be able to explain that as a text on the other side of things. So, like, I can say, hey, I just tried this thing, but, like, whether or not it works and whether or not it's something the audience latches onto is a whole another question.
And you could never really give that as advice because it might never work again, right? I mean, like, there are certain tools that do. Like, I use Anne Lamott's just do 300 words a day a lot, and then I usually end up writing more than 300 because I'm like, oh, just sit down and do 300, and if you do 302, like, whew. But then certain things, like, I tried this one thing for this one story, and it only worked for this. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, there are some things like rule of threes. Like, let's name them. Rule of threes works. The rule of threes just works. I don't know why it works, but it works.
Yeah.
What else works?
Well, I want to give a big shout out to something that Ben said before we started recording about the transference of peril to a totem. So if you, like, in the first act of a piece, you know that your characters aren't really in peril because there's 2 more acts. But if you can transfer that peril to a specific thing, like, oh, they might lose the engagement ring before they get a chance to propose, or they might lose the special pen that they were going to give to their boss. I guess that's a lot of, like, comedy stuff. Like, you don't really, your characters aren't necessarily going to die in a comedy, but they might not make it home for Christmas, or, like, they might not be able to make it home for Christmas. I don't know.
Well, and especially when you deal with objects, like, it's a very tropey movie thing to, like, have the reaction shots to an object that's, like, in peril, and clearly the protagonist should be, like, focused on something else, but they're really worried about, like, grabbing this thing that's flying away from them or something like that. And I think that that's a good way to, like, sort of manage tension, in books too. Because, like, the bracelet that, like, they seeded early on is, like, very clear. The kid's like, I gotta give this to Dad. And you're like, it's a kid's movie, so the kid's not gonna die. But there's a fight scene and something's happening and the bracelet's out. You're like, oh, wow, that's the bracelet. You know what I mean? It builds the tension of what happens. Because if that object gets destroyed, then it's basically like the kid died. Or, I don't know. It's not basically like the kid died. But you know what I mean? Like, that's the object of stakes.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like, how many kids' movies does that happen in where, like, they have the thing and it's getting tugged between two other characters and then it rips or breaks or whatever, and as the clouds gather overhead, they're like, I just wanted to see my mom again or whatever. The significance tied up into the thing, because it isn't about the thing. The thing is a symbol for whatever you truly want. Like, did you ever watch the Get Down? That show, the Get Down?
No.
It's amazing. And it's a perfect example of the object being a symbol for what is actually at stake. So he's trying to get this one particular record because he knows that this girl he's trying to impress likes it. So the whole time, the record is in peril, but it's not actually the record. It's his relationship with this girl that's in peril. And meanwhile, she's trying to get to this dance concert, and that's in peril, but it's not actually about the dance concert. It's about her trying to use the dance concert to get out of the Bronx. Like, everything symbolizes a thing. So when you see the record, like, almost get stomped on, you're like, oh no, but how is he gonna smooch the girl, It's really great. The pilot episode of The Get Down is awesome.
The Get Down. Yeah. I'll check it out. So we know that object stakes transference works. We know that the rules of three work. Escalation is important. Great. I know that's true.
And that's 3, so...
I mean, so that's, so we've hit our rule of 3s. But the third one's got to be different. What is the third one? The third one is all of structuralism is correct.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, what's a third one? I don't know.
It's got to be different, so it's just big. The third one is that there are no rules. Oh, okay, so that's it.
Yeah.
If we're following the rule of 3s, or 3 rules are, the rule of 3s works, object transference can build stakes, and then there are no rules.
Great. Brilliant. Yeah, that's great. I want to, like, take a nap now.